Live from New York. It's a show that's thinking.
I'm listening to y'all pre-show conversations. My goodness. Just stop it. That's why I always come out 30 seconds before the start of the show. So I don't have to listen to this madness.
Brou's already mad because
He's not into it.
His day had to start earlier than usual today because he was scouring the pre-show doc, and then he's listening to Wilds try to name a dog, and he's
Brou's
just
not into it. Brou's up there grinding.
I'm grinding.
I'm
here to work. I'm here to work.
We start with a comical loss by the Cowboys. 2 minutes to go, tied at 20. Bengals punting, and it's blocked. Great news for almost every team in the history of the NFL, but not for Dallas last night. They can't grab it. The Bengals recover, score, and win the game. Jeez, Brou, you're great for the Cowboys.
Well, I feel for Micah.
Bum me out.
There was the good, there was the bad, and of course there was the ugly last night in Jerry World. And since I'm going to be fair, let's start with the good.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Rico Dowdle.
Thank you. I have a whole segment dedicated to him.
I mean, honestly, Rico's looking like, you know what?
A little bit.
We might get a run game next year.
Yeah.
131 yards, career high. Second straight game over 100 yards after his first 46 of his career. Obviously, he didn't play a lot of those, but had never gone for 100 yards. Now he's done the last 2 weeks.
For the season, 4.8 per carry.
Yeah.
And coming on strong as of late. Might just run down Tony Pollard at the end of year numbers. We'll see. It's on the board.
All right. Also, the defense.
Yes.
Defense entered this game giving up 34.5 points a game at home, held a great offense to 27 points. 27, wow, that's not that much. But that's less than Pittsburgh, the Chargers, those are two really good defenses, and Baltimore twice, which isn't a great defense, but still. Held them to fewer points than those teams did.
And held them to 20 if the muffed run is not muffed and they just ended on a field goal. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now the bad. All right. Despite getting two touchdowns from Greg Jennings' favorite quarterback, other than Daniel Jones, Cooper Rush. It is. He loves Cooper Rush. They only scored 20 points. All right, against a hapless Bengals defense. Yeah. They're only the fourth team this year not to score 20 or more against the Bengals. And the other three, the murderer's row of the Patriots, the Giants and the Browns, just like the Cowboys, they're missing the playoffs.
For the record, we won that game. So
you did win. At least you won that game. And now the ugly. Dusty the tape.
Oh, the tape.
Slow motion if you can. Nice started well. Block punt. And then here it is. Amani Aruare, I hope I said it right. And he tried that. He was like, uh-oh. And
he had just got called up from the practice squad.
I know, but it happened, all right? And that essentially cost them a game. 2 minutes left. They're about to be in field goal position. They got a great field goal kicker. They probably win this game and keep their fledgling, playoff hopes alive.
Honestly, before you give your grade, if that was you, would you
have
had the wherewithal to not touch it?
I'm going to be honest, because I'm an honest professor.
Exactly.
I'm a professor of integrity, and I take you back 2 weeks to Wanye Thomas. I think we do, here. When he caught the ball and ran back the onside kick, I must admit, I said, good for you, Wanye. I applauded him.
You said, get your glory.
Yes, right. And I got to take some of the blame for this because there's no doubt Amani was thinking this play on that.
Yes.
Glory! Mama, your boy's about to be a star. That's what was going through his mind. He was like, here it goes. Yeah. And it backfired. So I do take a little bit of the blame for that. And so I think I'm being fair. I think I'm being kind. I'm giving them a C, and it's not for comical. Yeah, but I'm giving them a C.
Also, that is the rule. I would suggest a slight revision to that rule. The punting team, I get it that if it's blocked and then touched past the line of scrimmage, it's then like a muffed punt. I understand all of that. It should have to go past what you needed for a first down for it to result in a first down by the punting team. Like
I buy that, but that one
was 12 yards shy of what they needed for the first down.
You need to get
it was just a really weird thing.
Yeah,
where
he may have been confused.
Yeah, it's just a weird spot because on a blocked kick, stay away from it.
Right.
I think that he's thinking I can scoop and score.
Yeah.
And then because you see the yellow line.
Yeah,
it's
I
like
buy that.
even if it was,
it's
a weird thing that is a mistake, and I'm not saying it.
Here's
but
the one question: what if it's just a bad kick?
It has to be on a block. It has to be on. It has to be. To me, it has to be on a block because there's a lot of weird stuff that happens on blocks that I just think you should. Logic should try not to penalize the team that made a great play. And the Cowboys made a great play, but that's, again, set that aside. And by the way, even with that, they maybe lose. Like, it's just Cooper Rush with the ball in a tie game. It's no guarantee they're going to points.
I mean, the Bengals they probably get it with some time on the clock.
Right. So there's no sure thing. So I think Brou deciphered the game quite well. I want to say something about Micah, and then I want to say something about why I think the loss was good for Dallas, if I may. Micah's a great player that might actually be underrated. Like, the difference, I know the first couple games of the year, the Cowboys defense was not good. I understand that. But then we saw them for a stretch without him. And it was like, oh, that might be the worst defense in football. And since he's gotten back, that defense has been legit. Yesterday, I said on the show, and it seemed like you were flirting with it, that the Cowboys defense might be enough to at least keep them in the game, if not win the game. Thank God that would have been a devastating loss in Nick's picks if that was a Friday pick because they were covering the whole game and then end up losing. And I love how much that meant to Micah. I didn't mind that he left the field, didn't leave early, but as soon as the game was over, he left. He was crying on the sideline. Now, part of that is overshown. Seems like he suffered as devastating of a knee injury as one can suffer. They're talking about him missing all of next year, which is devastating.
He looked like a future star.
But I really appreciated his post-game press conference. I watched the whole thing because it did seem like it meant so much to him. And their path moving forward has to be through him and through the defense. They are not going to have a quarterback or an offense that's going to be good enough to carry you to a Super Bowl. I think they could have a quarterback and an offense that's good enough to be the supporting actor to a dominant defense, similar to what Pittsburgh, I think, is trying to do now.
Now, last year, so what do you think about last year's offense?
Last year they had a great defense, too. Last year they had a great defense. Put up a lot of points. I think they could have a good regular season offense. I think that in the playoffs, you know what I mean? Like that,
actually,
right. And so it's also why I think the loss yesterday is probably good for them. The Overshawn injury is brutal, and set that aside. Had they won that game, I do think you were onto something that they might have been planning to bring McCarthy back. And I don't think that's a good idea. Had they won that game and they get to 6-7, and it's like, well, if we finish around 500, even though Dak was gone, we finished strong. We heard Troy's comments supporting him. We know Jerry cares about what Troy says. He echoed him, all those things. I don't know that there's ever been a team that needs Mike Vrabel more than the Dallas Cowboys.
That's interesting.
A defensive-minded coach, a culture setter, a guy who can hand the team almost over from a leadership perspective to Micah, who needs to mature some off the field, but on the field, and by off the field, I just mean be more, responsible with his podcasting. That he is there. Only one other team in the league has a guy like this player. He's that guy. And I think he cares. In fact, I know he cares. So, those were kind of my takeaways from that.
Right. First of all, I guess we'll get to this later, but are you sure McCarthy's gone?
Oh, I'm obviously not sure, but I think that
I'm not sure.
I think that it's on the board after that devastating of a loss. When they're 3 of their last 4 are Tampa, Philly, and Washington. And by the way, in one of the most shocking turn of events in recent gambling history, they play Carolina this week, and Carolina is a 2.5-point favorite. I think this loss has a long tail, and Carolina's been dying for a win, and Carolina can beat them. And then you have Tampa, Philly, Washington. All of a sudden, if you finish your year losing 5 in a row or 4 or 5,
but the other side of that is if you get a big upset win against a floundering Eagles team, all of a sudden it's like, whew, you're right there. This one barely counts. It's like an odd one.
Well, let's.
So you say if they went 1-3 but beat Philly?
I think Jerry is less concerned with the totality of Mike McCarthy's coaching tenure this year and looking for highlights and a little bit of recency bias. You win the last 2 games.
Maybe, but I don't think they're going to. I think going to Philly, and we're saying Philly's floundering in theory now, even though they've won 7 straight.
True.
See how they are in 2 weeks. Washington in the final week of the year when they might be playing for their playoff life. Right. Tampa, Philly, Washington are all playing for something. Carolina has been dying for a win. Yeah. They've been so close. It's not an easy stretch.
Joe Burrow throws for 370 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Jamar Chase goes for 177 and 2. All right. Reason Cincy is 5-8, bad luck or more bad play?
I can't wait to hear Nick's answer. Bad team, period. Because a team is not just an offense. A great quarterback and great receivers doesn't make a team. It's a nice offense, but what about the other side of the ball? And we know their defense is pitiful. So this is a bad team, all right? You give up 27.7 points a game. All right, that is horrific. We know their offense is averaging 28 points a game, and still they're 5-8. They gave up 38 to Washington, 41 to Baltimore, 37 to Philly, 44 to Pittsburgh, which doesn't score a lot of points, for the most part. And then on top of that, they got no run game either. They're bottom 5 in the league in rushing. I think 4th from the bottom in rushing, 90 yards a game. The teams below them, just like, I said about the Cowboys, those teams, Cleveland, the Jets, the Raiders, none of them making the playoffs. So overall, look, Burrow's great. Jamar's great. T is very good. But the team as a whole, not good.
I agree with a lot of what you said. The rushing stat is less resonant to me because the offense is so good. I think one of the reasons they only have 90 yards a game rushing is it probably makes more sense for them to pass most of the time. And they've been trailing a lot because of the defense. But in general, here is why I can't chalk it up to bad luck. They have now had 5 games that were what I call coin flip games. Mm-hmm. The games that the Chiefs are 8-0 in or whatever it is. And you're supposed to win about half your coin flip games. They won this one. Yeah. So their coin flip games, I'll call the KC game a coin flip game because it came down to the pass interference. Sure. Both Baltimore games, to me, were coin flip games. And the Charger game, which was tied late into the 4th and whatever it is. And then this one. They're 1-4. So if you play 5 coin flip games, you probably should be 2-3 or 3-2. So give them one more win. They're 6-7. They're still not currently a playoff team.
Just close games, or this is like the Commanders count?
No.
The Commanders. Okay,
no, because that's not a coin flip game because the Commanders had a 13-point lead with 2 minutes left.
Got it. Okay.
All coin flip games are close, but all close games are not coin flip games. Okay. If that makes sense.
Sure.
Games that came down to literally a play or 2, they are 1-4. So let's just say, okay, say they had better luck than average and they were 3-2. They'd still be, what's that record? 7-6, and on the outside looking into the playoffs. Like that is indicative of a team that's not a complete team. I totally agree with Brou. And what is brutal for them is this, because you guys are right. This is a team that I have, fear is the wrong word, but trepidation about, because especially this year's Chiefs, I think there's only 2 teams that have the exact personnel they don't want to play, which is star quarterback and 2 stud receivers. And that is Cincinnati and the Rams. And that's probably why I overrate those teams a bit. But it's because those teams, I'm like, oh, that's the recipe to give KC hell. Eagles have the 2 receivers. I don't think they have a star quarterback. Obviously, Baltimore or Buffalo has star quarterback. They have 2 receivers. So I was this morning, I went on the old playoff calculator, and I'm like, what if Cincinnati wins out? And the answer is, even if they win out, they're basically, I don't have to get into all the permutations, but screwed. Even at 9-8, because they're not going to have any of the tiebreakers because the divisional record's terrible. Indy and Denver play each other, so someone's going to get a win. Then Denver and the Chargers play each other. So they're ruined. And this is where, Wilds, I will tip my cap to you.
I've only been saying this for 13 weeks.
No, well, no, I won't. It's not. Well, then maybe I won't tip my cap to you.
Shoot.
But had they not given away the Patriots game, they would be alive.
Oh, yeah.
With the schedule they have left at 7 losses, they'd be like, you know what? We got this one. 10-7 will get you in. There will not be a 10-win AFC team that doesn't get in. 10-7 gets you in, but every game matters, even in a 17-game season. You lose in week 1 to a Pats team that we have since learned is what we thought it was, one of the worst teams in football.
We actually got a little bit too excited there, and then we've...
Okay, yeah, that's fine. But, yeah, no. So I think it's more bad team than bad luck, Brou. I agree with you.
They need this offseason for the Bengals, before we move on to Belichick, they have to, honestly, it sounds weird, but priority number 1 needs to figure out their training camp and how can they get out of the gate strong. Just be like, we'll be good, we'll turn it on late. Like, you shouldn't be having to flip the switch in the regular season to make this big run. It kills them every year. They just, I don't know what you got to do.
I put that mainly on Zach Taylor and Burrow.
It's got to be. It's got to be.
I put it way more on the coach than the quarterback.
More, but you don't put. I put some. No, this has been his pattern every year.
Sure. I mean, in Burrow, in fairness to Burrow, 2 of the years he was either injured or coming off an injury. Right. Like this year was, and this year even he was. Wilds was on wristwatch. I didn't think he was right. Yeah.
You know what? Gotta play harder. That's what I'm doing. I'm taking the fine. Hey, show up. Oh, you're not allowed to do that. NFLPA. Too bad. We're doing it. Developing story. Belichick, North Carolina. He's agreed to be the next coach, but also sent a 400-page organizational Bible to the school, bro. Wow. Ollie Connolly writing that the Bible would require historic levels of investment from UNC. So Bill's waiting to hear back from a bevy of decision makers, including the faculty, and reports note that he's, quote, unwilling to negotiate. All right, what do you make of this?
Yeah, so this story, much like, honestly, our bar, confused me a bit, because when I read agreed to become the next head coach, I'm like, oh, so he's the next head coach.
Yeah.
Because that is the report. What our bar says is exactly right. It is the report. But now he's like said, I'll do it if you agree to X, Y, and Z. The ball is in your court.
Yeah.
And so, listen, I think this is a fascinating story for a million reasons. I think he is obviously worried he's not getting an NFL job. Mm-hmm. I think it's not the only reason, but the primary reason you go to the college route. I don't want to be unfair here, but I think this is actually fair and part of the public discussion of Belichick. We have talked about how he took all these media jobs in order to show NFL owners how engaged he is, who he is, that it was, he was trying to remake his image.
And he's been good.
Right, he's been good at those. If all of his public decisions have been about trying to make sure he lands an NFL head coaching job, I don't think very publicly dating a 24-year-old helps himself with NFL owners. Just like I think that if somebody was applying for jobs, was very publicly about, honestly, anything, political or an activist or anything, I don't think it helps. And I think most people are like, that's kind of weird. And he's going to be the face of our franchise. So I don't think that helps him. And if you're the New York Giants, which is where everyone put him, and the Maras, I would imagine that came up in a meeting. Like, did you see the Instagram from Halloween? A little weird for our next head coach who was born in 1952. So I think that has played into the math. I really do. And now he is, to me, Brou, saying, I'll take your college job if you allow me to essentially run the entire place. And that's a risky gambit, because what if North Carolina football is like, we don't want Bill Belichick? That's not a great PR thing for the next job he's trying to get.
If that's true, that would hurt him, I would think, in college, too. I mean,
sure.
Darn your college age.
I think it hurts him in all these spots.
I don't, but I think what hurts him more is the fact that if he comes in, he wants to run things like he did in New England. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a problem. But look, Bill Belichick his passion is coaching. He believes his purpose is coaching. He clearly just wants to coach. So I will say more power to him. All right, but besides the human element, which that is, I think this is ridiculous. Like, for him to go back to college And with NIL, which he has no, knowledge of, but he's going to have to deal with, the transfer portal, like all of that is going to be a hassle for him. And here's the other thing. His legacy is set with the 6 Super Bowl rings, obviously. But there's a little, always say it, hadn't done anything without Brady. In a long, big sample size, 11 seasons without Brady, hadn't done anything. If you go to North Carolina and fail, and I got to be honest, I don't think this would go well. I don't think he'd really light it up there and do very well. Now that's another stain on your legacy. You're set, again, 6 Super Bowls. But still, that's just another stain on your legacy. As far as the NFL, Nick, I think the Cowboys should go for him. And when I look at the teams, that's like maybe the only fit I love him in.
If he thought any NFL team was really interested in him, this wouldn't be what's happening?
Part of me, and I think everything you both said makes sense, part of me thinks this huge organizational Bible and all of these demands and the fact that you're going to need to buy out another college GM, which is a position that just got invented. So now you need a GM to buy out another GM. Part of me thinks this is an audition for the NFL. It's like, I'm no joke. You hire me, I'm coming with a 400-page organizational Bible. You want to get a look at it? We'll go out. Jerry, you want to see it? What's Mike McCarthy got? A claim that he's watched every game in a barn? Okay, and he didn't do it? I got a 400-page organizational Bible.
Well, I would imagine if they turn him down, we're about 4 days away from the internet having it. The UNC people can just post that thing. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.